Hi, I'm going to do a quick little demo for you of a little winterscape. All I've done right now is masking out, you can see it, a little evergreen, and I've just been concentrating on how the snow will lie on top of those branches. And I'm going to start out with putting in the background, and I've already mixed my colors in my palette. I'm going to use Cobalt Blue and some Cobalt Blue together with Opera Rose. I have some French Ultramarine Blue that I'm going to use later, and I have some burnt Sienna that's going to go in later, and I have some Indigo that's going to go in later, and I'll explain about that when we get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet the sky, and you know how I am. I like to just turn my paper around so it's easier for me to get that water applied to the sky area. And it's not only going to be sky, it's not going to be very much sky, as a matter of fact. It's going to be some distant evergreens in the background. Alright, and I just put the water on, can you see? I think you can. That whole area, and I, with a pencil, very light pencil line, I kind of indicated some little snowy hills that are going to be behind the tree also. Alright, so I'm just going to start out with putting in a little bit of a mixture of my Cobalt Blue and that Opera Rose. Just very light like this. A little bit more. Here, you know how it is with sky. Sky is always darker at the top, and it gets lighter as it moves down towards the horizon line. So there's that. I think that can do. That's just fine. Just putting in a little bit more of that Opera Rose just to make it a little more interesting. There. And I'm not even worried about getting all the way down to the line for the hills there, because as soon as this has had a little chance to sink in, I am going to paint in those distant evergreens. So I'm looking at it, and the shine is beginning to leave the paper. It looks like it's the driest here. Maybe it's just because that's what it looks like, but I'm not sure. I don't know, I'm getting a shadow there. I don't know what to do about that. I got started on this little video a little bit later than I had wanted to. Can you see how I'm just finding the edge of that hill? So there I get a hard line, and then I'm just gently moving my brush up in some upward strokes. And that's going to be these evergreens in the background, and I don't have to worry about my little tree here because that's already masked out. And so I'm just going to get the first layer of color on. Go back in here, and I do want a little color variant, so now I just put a little bit more of the indigo in the mix. And so at the bottom, these trees in the distance, they're outlining the top of the hills, and then the top of them are going to go into the sky, and they're just going to form a mass of evergreens. And there. Okay. So that was the most important part, just getting those hills outlined. Now I can go in and have a little bit more fun with the colors. So I put a little bit more of the French Ultramarine on that one, can you tell? And then, yeah. And all I want is for this silhouette to look as if it could be evergreens. That's really all we're after. And as things dry, they start holding their shape a little bit better. And of course, I don't want them all to be the same height. That's not good. So now I'm going to go in and give a little variety to those edges. And you can see it kind of flows out because this is still wet up here. The sky is still wet. So, and some upward strokes like this. So get those nice little shapes that kind of look like evergreens. You know, I might even take a little bit, why not, of that pink, the upper rose, so get something a little purpley. I think that could be nice in between here. I can do, as you know, whatever I like because it's my world here. So if I feel like putting a little bit of purple in, I'm just going to do it. There, I like that. And now I'm going to go back into a little bit of that indigo. They'll be a little darker down at the bottom, these trees. And can you see how things are holding a little bit more? Now as things are beginning to dry, so I'm going in and just getting a little bit, and there we go. And now as it's drying even more, get that. The more pigment you have on your brush and less water, the less it flows out. That's how it works. So now, can you see there, I got a nice one, and I do want to have a little definition around this tree. That's my focal point. So now as things are drying, I'm getting a little bit more hold, and a bit here. And let's see, do we have anything that looks super weird? I don't think so. Maybe down there, because it's already dry here. So as long as these things look kind of like evergreens, I'm good. A couple more of these definitions here would be good. Dab, dab. And then I'm dabbing a little bit more here. It's all about just having some shapes that look like evergreens, and then what happens is the rest of the stuff starts looking like evergreens too, even if you didn't even paint them in like that. It's just, yeah, the eyes of the viewer plays tricks on them. Once they see, they need a few clues, and then they make up the rest. That's the beauty of it. Alright, let me take a look. Yeah, I think that's good. Now this is dry, and so I just want to go in and separate the area that's all white, the little snowbanks and stuff. And what I'm going to do is, there's a little hill here behind, so again I'm going to flip it around, and then I'm putting a little bit of water right where that distant little hill is, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that color that I mixed of the upper rose and the cobalt blue, and I'm going to put a little bit in here, and you can see how it spreads out nicely up where I put the water in, and then it'll be a hard line right where it meets the other little hill. And now I'm going to take another brush and go in with just a damp brush, and I'm going to touch into that pigment I deposited of the Cobalt Blue and the Opera Rose, and just going to pull it up a little bit. And I might go in, do a few little things here with the brush, you know, just to indicate some little undulations in the snow. Go in and mush that around a little bit. So I want this to be lightest at the top because that's where it's still going to get a little light, and it's darker down here. And again, be some little patterns in the snow. Can you see it? Yeah, there you are. Okay, so that was that. And then I'll go in, and while this is drying, I'm going to just run a little bit of water over the rest of the area here. And I'm careful that I don't touch into the wet area, so I leave myself a little space there that's dry in between. And then I'm going to go in and get some more of that shadow color on my brush, and I'm just going to run that all the way across this tree, a little bit up here. Basically, I don't want this paper to be completely white because I want the white on this evergreen to be the whitest when I take the masking fluid off. And put a little bit darker on there, be a little darker around the tree, and just pull that down. And I think that's pretty good. And I want to get it a little tiny bit darker also down here, and the same in the other corner. I always like to have it a little darker down in the corners. And so everything's wet here, so it's just going to blend nicely, and I shouldn't get any hard lines because I'm not really interested in any hard lines at this point. And now I'm just going to be very careful, just go in and just bring the water and the pigment all the way up to that line, and a little bit more there. And here. All right, I think that's good. Good enough. Pick out a little bit of the pigment there. Let's see. Yeah. So now it's already looking much better, I think. Okay, I think everything is dry, and it's time. I already rubbed off the masking fluid, and it's time to put those dark twigs that are sticking out underneath the snow on this evergreen in the foreground. So I made myself a very dark green mix there, have some there, and I have more of the indigo here, and I use transparent yellow just a little bit to green up that indigo. So I don't want too much water on my brush. I'm going to use my 1/2" dagger brush to start with. It has a nice tip, and I'm going to load it up with that dark green mixture. Dab it on the paper a little bit, my towel here a little bit, and then I'm just going to go in, and often these top ones, you know, the snow falls off. So I just do a little bit there, and if it needs a little bit of white, you know, there's no law against using a little bit of white paint afterwards if you need to recap some of the lights or the white. And I'm just kind of going under this snow mainly, because that's where those little twigs are sticking out. And in here. And I'm just kind of, if you had too much coffee, that's perfect for this, because if you have a little bit of a shaky hand, this works like a charm. And can you see how it's already beginning to look like these little twigs sticking out from underneath the snow that fell the night before maybe? And the more green you put on, the less snow is left on the tree. And that's exactly how it is. Like right after snowfall, there is not very many twigs sticking out. The snow is still really sticking to the branches and clinging to them. And then as the time goes on, birds start landing on the little branches and knock the snow off. The wind might kick up and knock some of the snow off. And if it's several days and you have some windy weather, there's hardly any snow left on the trees. So there's no right or wrong way of doing this. It all depends on where in the process, or where, how long ago the snow fell, and also what kind of snow it is. There's many kinds of snow. There's really powdery snow when it's really frosty and cold and not very damp in the weather, and then there is super heavy snow that really weighs the branches down, and everything in between. I think the Eskimos, at least that's what I was taught when I grew up in Denmark, they have, I think it's something like 30 or 40 different words that mean snow, but it's different kinds of snow, because that's a very important part of their environment. So it's not just snow, it has, you have to describe what kind of snow it is, because it'll present certain advantages and dangers and stuff like that. So snow bites, just snow was not good enough. So anyway, there we have it. There's a little evergreen, and we'll let that dry. And then I am going to make some little twigs sticking up through the snow, because that really is usually the case. So I already pre-tore some masking tape, just regular blue masking tape, or whatever kind of masking tape you have. If you have artist tape, that works too. And I'm going to pick some little areas and put them on, and then I am going to mix myself a dark color, so I can use this burnt sienna I had here, and maybe even put it in some of that green. And if that's not the color I want, I put a little bit of French ultramarine blue in there. I have kind of like a darkish, not quite black, but very dark color. Alright, that'll work. And then let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to probably take this stagger brush again, but it doesn't matter so much what brush you have. And I took most of the water out because I want thick pigment. I'm just loading up the tip here with that color. Then I'm going on my towel, and let's see. So first I'm just going to do some little, there we go, some little strokes like this, and that's going to indicate like little twigs and grasses sticking up through the snow. And there we go. Can you see that? Yeah. So let me just gently take that off. And can you see I kind of created like a little dip in the snow where some of those little branches are sticking up. And you know, dried grasses, whatever. Whatever you want it to be, that's what it's going to be. And I loaded up my brush with a little bit more because I feel encouraged now. So let's just go for some more of that over here. And you want to make sure that it doesn't get too regular and, you know, too all the same. Don't do like a whole bunch in the same direction. Just crisscross. Some are short, some are long. Little dry brushing, whatever you can come up with is a really good idea. So here's that. Let's take a look. Yeah, not bad, right? And I think we kind of need one more little area. So let's see what we can come up with. What about here? Down here maybe. A little bit like that. There's a little dip in the snow. And there, a couple more little ones. Need to get a little bit more pigment on my brush, and I'm just flicking my wrist. I hope you can see that. I'm flicking my wrist like that. And since these are a little bit more in the foreground, they can be a little bit bigger. There. I think I'll leave that at that. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like it. What do you think? I might have to do maybe another little one just like right over here. Just a little bit. And these will be smaller because they're further away. So there, just a little bit. See that? Yeah. So now I've got 4. You know how it is, I never like to have an even number. So we gotta come up with one more maybe. And could be, you know, way out here would be maybe nice. Of course, there's not a whole lot going on. So again, so a little bit more. There. Scrape that off. Alrighty, good enough. Now I'm going to go in and just put a little bit more shape on that snow. Can see here, putting it up so you can see it a little bit better. I want to put a little bit of a shadow color, and that is just that cobalt that I'm going to just tone down, and not very dark. Don't do it too dark. Might just want to dull it down just a little bit. Take a little bit of that burnt sienna and put in. Just so it's more like grayed down a little bit. There, that's a nice little shadow color. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of a smaller brush. This is number 4. And then I'm going to grab the brush I used earlier, that's a number 6. And I'm going to use this one, the number 6, to just kind of loosen the edge if I need to. And I'm going to use this little number 4 to put a little bit of shadow color right where the snow meets the twigs. There'll be a little shadow underneath, and that'll help. And then I like to go in with this one and just kind of soften out the edges. And you want to be very gentle when you do this, otherwise, you know, the very dark green color on the twigs, it's going to start loosening up and bleeding out. So it's okay if it bleeds out a little bit, but you don't want it, you know, you don't want to lose the white of your snow. And it'll be white on the top, and then it'll be a little shadow that gives it volume right on the sides there, where it's clinging to the branches. And you can see it doesn't take much, and you know, some of the branches above, they'll also cast a little shadow and stuff. So with little stuff like this, you don't have to be too concerned about, you know, precision. You just want to have a little bit of shadow color on there that gives it, you know, a much more finished look. Clean that brush out a little bit. And I can see I do get a little bit of bleed back from the green, but that's okay. The shadow can be a little greenish too. That's okay. It works. Just loosening the edge, and you just have this brush just damp. Don't have it dripping wet. And a little bit more down here. A little bit down there. On this one, and then go in and just kind of smoosh it around a little bit. All right. I hope you can see that that already looks better. I need a little bit up here, I can tell. There. I think that's good enough. So I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. Can you see how they gave it more volume by doing that? And then we need to get a little bit of some shadows cast. And we're going to use a little bit of a darker shadow color, so I'm going to take some of the Cobalt Blue, maybe put a little bit of the French Ultramarine blue in to darken it up, a little bit more of the pink, not too much, but a little bit. Of course, you know, shadows are going to be kind of purpley because of the sky, and so here's a color that I think will work. It's Cobalt Blue, a little bit of the Opera Rose, and then a little bit of the French Ultramarine Blue. And now where's the light coming from? I think the light might be coming from over here. I think the sky looks a little bit lighter there. It doesn't matter, it's, you know, it's my painting, I can decide. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of water underneath the tree, and then I'm going to go in with my shadow color and just run that in underneath here, and then out like that. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to run a little bit of shadow color here at the base of these little weeds and grasses that are sticking out. And let's get some more of that in, a little bit. Can you see that? Just a little bit. And again, I go in and kind of loosen the edges a little bit on that. And same here, a little bit. And that's because there's going to be, you know, there's like little dips in the snow where these grasses are sticking up. I think that got a little too there. And you can blot out if you've got a little darker than you want it. But there we have those, and we need a little bit here. There. And again, I'm gonna just smoosh it around a little bit. Maybe dab it a little bit, just so it's not too severe. There. And so the shadows are falling this way. So now I'm just going to try and pull out some little shadows from the grasses. They're going to cast little shadows on the snow. Just a little bit. That's a little too much. Let's dab it up right away if you get a little carried away. And just kind of in the same direction that there. So just a little bit. It's just to break up this big area of almost white. You could use a little rigger brush for this too if you have that. I already got this brush loaded, so I'm just going to stick with it. There. And then there's a little bit here on this one. So just a little bit from, and it's, you know, some of those bigger ones. There. Can you see how that starts giving it some extra dimension and shape? A little bit here. And then, I need to wet my brush a little bit. And then out here also. And again, that's the same, you just kind of flick a little bit with your wrist. Don't put too much pressure on the brush. And load up my brush a little bit more. And here, out here, and there we go. And there you have it. Yeah, I think I'll just call that a day. I think it's a nice little, just a nice little wintry scene. You could, you know, if you want to, you can put some more branches up there, but I don't want to overdo it, and I think I'm going to crop it a little bit because I just painted on a long leftover piece, so I might crop it. That way it's a little bit better, and I'm kind of thinking maybe I should darken up here a little bit, just right underneath the tree. Could be a little darker. Let it run out. There. Okay, that's good enough. Okie dokie. I will see you in a later video, and have a fabulous day and have fun painting a winter scene.